Hello and welcome to Kinboshi Sumo, where we are here to give you a quick little final weekend preview because things that looked so obvious after day 10 have now gone nuts. Is that right, Nick?
Yeah, we're still semi on track, but there's definitely been some upsets from what we predicted the last time.
Oh, definitely. And even beforehand, so you and I were both very clearly on the Takakeisho bandwagon for this, with obviously all of the Ozeki field collapsing, a very confusing Sonyaku, Teruno Fuji sitting out again. Both of us were just like, yeah, obvious run for Takakeisho this time. And after 10 days, when we originally outlined what we were going to talk about in this show, we were like, yeah, man, 9-1, like this. We were actually going to talk about at 14-1, is he a lock for Yokozuna? And then
he lost some really surprise matches, Kotoshoho and Kiribayama.
I know. I thought he would struggle with Kiribayama just because, like, I don't know, Kiribayama is so wily, and he's just like this sinewy, strong dude, and I was like, I don't know. But Takakeisho had honestly looked really good this tournament. I thought he looked really strong. He had the same kind of power that he's had traditionally, but my initial assessment was that he was adding some new moves. He was adding in some side steps and some lateral movement. He was attacking people on the shoulder instead of just in the chest. So I was actually like, hey man, this is a level up moment. Not only could he make a Yokozuna run, but I think he deserves it. But then right around, was it like day 9? The cups returned and his left shoulder had those telltale signs that it was clearly bothering him. And then all of a sudden I doubted myself because his power was just gone. And I was like, oh, was he doing those side steps not because he had worked on some new techniques, but because he was compensating? And then just like, against Kotoshoho, I thought he had no strength. There was no power in those pushes. Kotoshoho is a big, strong dude, but he just stood there and took every one of Takakeisho's blows, and I even felt like Kotoshoho, like, took too long to turn it around on Keisho, and, like, once he realized that, oh, this guy, he's shooting an empty gun at me, and then Kotoshoho just threw him out.
Yeah, like, realistically, like you said, once that flipped, like, he just totally steamrolled him.
Yeah.
And which is surprising, Takakeisho, his fights against Midori Fuji and Nishiki Fuji were two of my favorites the entire tournament. Those were so intense and so good.
Yeah. And so I don't know what it says. Again, like, is it that those are a couple of smaller guys? Like, make no mistake, his 9-1 run, like, I think the JSA was trying to help him out, and this is something I'll let you talk about, because I know it's been a big issue for you, is this what's going to happen with Ozeki and Yokozuna Ozeki, and how are they going to keep the top of this Bansuke where they need it to be for the next couple Basho. But he fought a very weak slate. They were like sandbagging on all of his Sonyaku fights till the end, so I almost felt like the JSA were like pushing for this, trying to set him up and get him to a position where he could make a Yokozuna run. But then even kind of with that softball run, or maybe it's that, yeah, once he fought two Komosubis, Kotoshoho and Kiribayama, then things started to unravel, because he had that early loss to Tobizaru too on day 2, which, ugh.
Yeah, he and Abi kind of had a flipped of what I expected those first week to be, where Abi went straight through the Sonyaku.
Oh my god, those
and
five.
Takakeisho went straight through the Mega Shira, which I would have expected to be, and maybe that's just, I've only been watching a year, but it seemed a little flipped to me.
Mm-mm.
But yeah, this has been interesting because I really thought Takakeisho, prior to obviously day 11 and 12, that he was a lock-in for potential Yokozuna. Like you said, it wouldn't be the greatest Yokozuna start,
mm-hmm.
but when you have one Yokozuna who's out for an unknown amount of time, and one Ozeki that you're basically everything is riding on him. 100% of the sport is riding on him. You wanted him at Ozeki potentially, so that if he did get injured with his shoulder, you're still safe.
Yeah, I agree, because then you can just have the two Yokozuna Ozekis and just call that good.
And it's not like exciting that both of them are potentially out for injuries, but it fulfills your requirements.
Yeah.
They're never going to change.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Like, they're not going to get rid of the idea that there needs to be two Ozeki.
No, and that gives them a chance. Like, if Takakeisho, like, he's doing great. He's had a good year, but if he's out for injury, like, that puts him at serious risk. And then you're like, well, what do you do? Nobody nobody's ready to get pumped up to Ozeki.
Exactly.
Wakataka Kage had a chance maybe earlier in the year, and then he dropped a couple tournaments where he just didn't do that great.
Right, and then Hoshoryu, had he won the last Basho, and then he started impressively this Basho, like maybe he has an outsider's chance. And Takakeisho, or Takayasu, we talked about, like, if had he not pulled out of this tournament, even though the majority of his wins were in high Maegashira instead of Sanyaku, like they're technically supposed to be, they will count wins in that if you were in that M1 to M3 range, they will still count those, because generally speaking, you fight most, if not all, of the Sanyaku at that point. So in the past, they have given guys upgrades there, and I thought they'd give him the benefit of the doubt because he's been a past Ozeki, you know what I mean? However, pulled out of the tournament, so that's gone. So, like, those were maybe the three guys who, and one more who had a chance, like Tamawashi, had he not absolutely imploded with a 6-win November. Tamawashi's a guy who I thought with 2 Yusho, and a lot of his wins would have been coming at the high Maigashiras. That was a guy who could have been an Ozeki candidate, or of course Shodai defending it, or Takeyumi getting the immediate bounce back, which didn't happen. So we had 6 guys who could have gotten there, and they all fell apart because the division is just chaos right now. Sumo, there is just like a gigantic bubble that has burst pretty much with the Hakuho departure.
Yeah, and we've seen basically Komusubi and down the last year. It's just constantly churning where these people, they get up to Komusubi and then they're just down to Megashira like 3 or 4 because they've done terrible. And exactly. Kiribiyama's doing pretty good, but even like Kotonowaka is underperforming for what I expected.
Yeah.
He's losing against people he's never lost against or barely struggled with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this tournament...
Meisei is doing just like he did last, I think it was last January, March, where he just blew up.
Yes. And Daisho, again, looks very good this tournament, but he's looking good at M1, which is so frustrating because at M1, he's fighting the exact same people he fights at Sekiwake and Komusubi, and I'm like, Daisho, just be consistent. You will get to Ozeki, my man, please.
It's the same issue I have with Abi, where he does really well at like the M1 to M3, but for some reason, just like Daisho, as soon as he hit that Sekiwake Komusubi, just falls apart.
Right.
It's the same people. Yes. It's like he just can't hold the title.
Abi opened this tournament on an absolute tear, 5-0 against 5 straight Sanyaku, and me and you are sitting there and we're like, well, here we go. And then just, what? Collapsed.
Yeah, just absolutely fell apart. He fought Takakeisho, great. Expected that win for Takakeisho. Hoshoryu, sure. That one, he was doing really well at the time, but then it just fell apart. Like, he's losing against people like Midori Fuji, Tobizaro. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I agree. And then, like, now he's maybe stabilizing, but at this point, I'm like, yeah, okay, he's going to get a Kachikoshi and then move on at M3.
Yeah. He'll with how everybody else is doing, he might bump up 1.
Exactly. And then, speaking of that, we should just talk about this because now there is a bona fide Yusho race. Today we've got 3 guys with a chance at finishing 12-3 going into the weekend here. So Takakeisho we covered, but our surprise candidates are that Onosho has looked great. And I don't think I've said this on the podcast, but I know I continuously and annoyingly say this to you, is that I want villains in sumo. Like, Asashoryu, just the idea of having an Asashoryu back is awesome to me. And I feel that the guys who are sort of candidates for that are Hoshoryu and Onosho. And so I'm excited to see Onosho making this run. But like you're talking about, this is just, we are in this place in sumo right now where it's this churn and chaos. And if Onosho wins this, he's essentially doing exactly what Abi did last time. You know, Abi winning it from M9 and Onosho would be winning it from M8. Just, you know, beating up a bunch of small boy soft babies. Not to insult them, but, you know, he has not had to fight the top slate, although maybe there's no difference between Sekiwake and like M10 right now.
Not as much as you would expect.
Yeah.
But it was entertaining, like you said, with some of the villain. Like, watching Onosho, like, he blasts people out of the ring and turns around and starts walking back. Yes. He's not looking to see if they're okay. He's not looking to see how they landed. He's like, they're out, don't give a shit. Turns around, walks away.
Yes, he's like, I won the match. That's it. And it's so awesome. So this was sometime, I think in like 2020, one of the commenters on NHK World brought up this point where he's like, so there's this new trend in sumo where guys will put their hand out and help each other back in the ring. They'll try to catch each other to prevent injury. They're kind of having more friendly relationships. And he's like, so there's this era of sportsmanship. And he's like, for you new fans out there, he's like, this is not normal. This is not what sumo used to be. The traditional way in sumo is that's your opponent. You throw him out and you move on. And so the reason that announcer was making that point is because he was actually talking about Onosho, because Onosho did exactly what you said, again, because he does that all the time. And the Onosho, and the announcer was trying to say, hey, don't be too hard on Onosho here. Like, what he's doing, I know that this looks bad, but he's like, this is what sumo used to be. But then to me, like, hearing that, I'm like, no, yeah, I don't care. If Onosho's the only one doing it, then give me a villain. Like, you know, pro wrestling or whatever. I don't watch pro wrestling per se, but like, you know, you've got New Japan and stuff like that. And in pro wrestling, you have your baby faces and your heels. Your heroes who are just like naive, and that's why you root for them is like, oh, they believe that everything's good. And then you got your heels who are just like, no, the only thing that matters is power and strength. And I'm like, yeah, give me a heel. We need Onosho. Let's do this.
And he's backing it up this time.
I know, that's the thing is I don't think he can truly be the villain of the division or be the heel unless he wins a U-show, unless he stays up there, you know? And so who knows if he'll be consistent after this, but I think there's a really interesting storyline there if Go No Show pulls this off.
Yeah, I'm just looking over like those last like year to 2 years. It looks like he's relatively consistent. Just had a couple of, you know, not great times.
There was an interesting stretch, I think, like end of 2020 and start of 2021, where for like 6 straight tournaments, he went 10-5, 5-10, 10-5, 5-10, 10-5, 5-10. It was hilarious.
Just like Shodai.
Shodai. That's another one. He, obviously, we're talking about this Ozeki situation, and he has his 6th loss and looks like he's going to go 9-6 or whatever. He's been looking very impressive. But, you know, did not get the immediate bounce back. So just, that's another guy, man, go on.
He is performing better at his demotion than Mitakeumi did. Mm-hmm. So he's handling it a little bit better than I expected. Like, let's see, he's 6-7 right now, so he still needs to win the next 2 days, but I think he could do it, and then he at least holds on to Sekiwake versus dropping, just plummeting like Mitakeumi.
Totally. At Sekiwake, maybe he sort of creates a run, or if he doesn't, if he drops lower, you and I have talked about, like, we think, man, if he was at M2 or M3, he's going to win a U-show. I just feel it. You know, like, if he gets just enough matches in there where he can pad his record because he got to fight an M7 or an M8, that's the difference between some of these where he, like, all these 9-6s with him at Ozeki and stuff was just like, ugh. But if he has those 2 matches where he can kind of pad his record, then 9-6 is 11-4 and looks great, and he's winning fighting spirit prizes and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, I think to anybody below like that M3 level, like Shodai's like a dangerous fight. Like he's gonna just obliterate people.
I think so too. We've talked about how it's so impressive that he is like, he's like a Migiyotsu fighter, except that he doesn't need to grip the Mawashi. He can do this grappling technique just like by grabbing your love handles.
He's so casual about fighting like people at like Takakeisho, Hoshoryu. Like he's so casual about fighting those people, and like, where he doesn't prepare as much as probably he should. It's like, so people below that, oh man.
Yeah, I know.
It's just gonna be no contest.
I think and hope so. I'd love to see the guy bounce back. And then speaking of bounce backs, just like 2 more and then one big one that I kind of wanted to cover here as we get into these final 2 days is obviously Kotoshoho is in here, and that's a bounce back story. He was one of the youngest guys to enter Makuuchi in the last few years. When he came up the first time, then had a bad knee injury, dropped down, bounced back, and has really just looked like spot filler, you know, like since he's been back, just kind of churning, keeping around, fighting at these double-digit M ranks, and just kind of kachikoshiing or a little bit not kachikoshiing. But now, I don't know where he's in this race. Is he going to force a playoff, you think, or is he going to fall out of this?
See fight tomorrow. Well, I mean, did he beat Abe today? Oh,
yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Daisho tomorrow. I think with the Daisho fight, I'm gonna guess last day it's gonna be Takakeisho and Onosho fighting it for the end.
I can see that.
I'm still leaning towards Takakeisho.
Yeah, me too.
For the win.
Me too. And I have not pulled up to see what Onosho or Takakeisho have left, but I think Takakeisho has not fought Wakatakakage yet, so that's a scary one for me. But Wakatakakage hasn't looked great, but he's doing the Wakatakakage thing, like have a bad tournament and then run off 4 straight wins to cling to a Kachikoshi and hang on to his rank. Like that's what he does.
Which is that's the reason I'm like, I don't see him being an Ozeki. He can't just obliterate people. Mm-hmm. He just can't win.
I know.
Like he just hits like these 8. Like not that it's bad at Sekiwake to get your Kachikoshi, but like it's not enough to get you promoted.
Exactly. Like I think that sumo is so down that just like having an Ozeki, like that, it's warping people's expectations of what an Ozeki should be. But like, make no mistake, Yokozuna is an invention of the modern era. Traditionally, Yokozuna or Ozeki are supposed to be these like the immortals, you know, the ones who every single Ozeki is supposed to be in the running for the Yusho on the final day. That's the expectation. That's why they make them do that ceremony where they promise not to dishonor sumo. So I don't see that from Wakataka Kage. What I see from Wakataka Kage is more what the expectations of Sekiwake should be. Someone who's really good and every once in a while is up there fighting with the Ozeki, challenging for a Yusho, but is not expected to be doing it every single tournament per se, you know? Like, Ozekis are supposed to never not get 12 wins. That's the idea. And that is not what we've seen in this era.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. It's the same story with Hoshoryu. Like he's good at the Komusubi Sekiwake level. Like to get 8-9 wins almost every time, it's good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to see somebody get promoted to Ozeki and then not be able to match up to, like, even with Takakeisho, that guy's been holding on to this sport for so long.
Yeah. And just, you and I were talking last night a little bit about it, but it's just interesting. I'm like, on one hand, I feel like the JSA did this to themselves. Like, so Hakuho took so much oxygen sort of out of the room. He was so good. I mean, the dude's the GOAT, right? 40 plus tournaments now. You and I've talked in the past or whatever. I think the reason why his stats are where they are is because Asashoryu got chased out. I think that Hakuho probably has more like 30 plus Yusho instead of 40 plus Yusho had Asashoryu still been around. But again, still, that's insane. That's madness. You know, he's still the greatest of all time. Is
still crazy.
Yeah. But then like now, he might have been on his way out anyway. Injuries were slowing down his career, but the JSA forced Kakuryu into retirement. Basically, you know, he had missed so many tournaments and he kept, you know, just pulling out Kyujoing. And they were like, hey, this is over. Like, you either fight or you don't get to be a Yokozuna anymore or leave. And so he left. But like, then Hakuho retired. And they, I think, felt like it was going to be okay because Terunofuji was coming up. But if that's what they thought, they shouldn't have thought that because those knees, like, we're seeing it right now. We have a friend who we watch sumo with who happens to be a physical therapist, and he rehabs people coming back from surgery and injuries and stuff like this. And I just want to read some of the stuff he said to us last night because it was, I don't know, it made me laugh and made me horrified. But he's like, we were like, hey, if Terunofuji comes back in March after only 6 months, is he going to be 100%? Is that too soon? His response was, I mean, to be slamming 500 pounds of flesh into another 500 pounds of flesh, like, that's never really okay. And he says, usually return to sport training typically starts after 12 weeks, depending on what kind of surgery it was. And he says, but maybe a little longer for professional sports, but they tend to accelerate it and push guys back too early anyway. And so basically he's saying, like, I don't think anyone should start doing any physical activity until 12 weeks after their surgery, so 3 months. And he's like, and even then you've got to ramp him up. But this guy is different because whereas a pro athlete coming back in, let's say, basketball or hockey or football, that guy isn't seriously obese, putting all that extra strain on those joints and things like that. So I don't know, man. They gambled on Terunofuji. Exactly what they should have known is happening. Should have known would happen is happening with him and his knees and his injuries. And at the same time, they then made a decision with their draconian policies to banish the best possible contender for Yokozuna, which was Asanoyama, all the way to Sandanmei. And don't get me wrong, don't break COVID guidelines. Don't do that. He screwed up. But when they took a year of his career away, I don't know, man.
Well, it didn't make sense to me that across the board, everybody seems like they got a different punishment. Abi,
yes.
Ryuden, obviously Ichinojo got nothing. To somebody at the top, I'm sure it's probably because like they're supposed to be like the face of the sport, like the spirit of the sport. But man, just to butcher their career.
Yeah, totally. Because now at this point, the dude's 30, and don't get me wrong, he looks like he is going to win the Juryo Yusho this time. But from J12 or whatever, where he was, like, I think he needed a Zensho Yusho to come up. I think it's entirely possible that at no, I mean, they're going to probably accelerate it because, again, I personally think they're trying to fix their own mistakes. If he goes 14-1 and wins this Yusho, they probably bring him back to the low Makuuchis. But if he goes 13-2, I think they leave him in Juryo. And then at that point, like, man, by the time the guy even gets back to Sanyaku, by the time he gets back to being a Komusubi, he's going to be 31. And that's not what you want. That's what you had with Terunofuji. That's where his body's going to break down. And he has not looked as good in these low divisions as he did when he was still in Makuuchi. And that's because, yeah, if you don't let an athlete play their sport for a year, and I know he could still train, but it is not the same. And so now he got a year older and he's out of practice, and now you think he's going to come be your savior? Like, he's not, man. They have now, this Hakuho gap, they have created this bubble for themselves that I don't think resolves anytime quickly.
Well, and I wonder if they're doing kind of like what I think they were doing with Takakeisho, where they're, like you said, they're trying to fix that mistake. It's just buying themselves time.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they can get another solid Ozeki, at least that point you're buying yourself some time. Because I think if Takakeisho had gotten up to, did a 14-1 like we thought he was going to, solid case for a Yokozuna, at least for the fact that you need somebody to like really hold things down.
Yeah.
Terunofuji, he might have even gotten to sit out in March. I think with Takakeisho tossing it up on the last day potentially, he might be forced to come back.
Yeah, I know. I'm with you. That Terunofuji might have to rush back, and then all we're doing if we rush him back is shortening whatever short time we have left with him. We are making it even less if we rush him back early. That's what I think. And
it just buys you time like every other move, and you just pray that somebody's coming up.
Exactly. And like you and I were saying, who is it? Like
nobody I'm seeing right now, like Kotonowaka, maybe in like a couple of years.
Maybe, yeah.
We get some more. I thought Nishikafuji maybe in like a year and a half, but he's done awful. I'm still ride or die Nishikafuji, but this has been a really shockingly terrible tournament for him.
Man, yeah. You and I were pushing that hype train so hard, and now this has been, this is a wake-up call. This is what we should have expected, but maybe we're victim to this too, that we're pushing so hard just because we want it. But him and Kotonowaka, we were pushing, and now both of them have just fallen apart this tournament, so it's like, okay, like just a second ago, I was rattling off potential contenders to get to Ozeki. One of my serious candidates was 38-year-old Tamawashi. That's not exactly the next generation.
It's not reassuring.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know who it is. It might be Oshiai, who literally just graduated from high school, and he won Makushita today. Good job, man. 7-0 at 19 years old. But like, again, the kid's 19 years old and just came out of high school. Like, if he's our next hope at Yokozuna, we're talking about waiting 3 years.
Yeah, he's got to hold everything down and hope nobody else falls apart in that time.
And they will. So, I don't know. That's just, like, it's not bad. Like we said in a previous show, like, we all need to be grateful for this chaos because it's really exciting. Everybody's favorite, no matter where they're ranked, has a chance to win a U-show. This is super exciting. This is great for sports. But I think at some point what's not great is, the vacuum at the top. Because at some point, like, upsets are what you like. Like, I don't watch baseball or whatever, but, like, we grew up both in North Dakota or whatever, so my parents always like watching the Minnesota Twins play the Yankees. The reason why they liked that in the playoffs is because the idea, oh, wow, little old plucky Twins, maybe they're going to beat the juggernaut Yankees. Like that, people like that in sports, and I don't think we have that right now, because even when Terunofuji comes back, yeah, he's a juggernaut, but like, maybe, are his knees good this month? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's like when he shows up and his knees are fine, the dude just obliterates everybody.
Yes.
And I don't know, he dropped out mid-September, so he'll have a good amount of time, but it's more towards like the minimum time of what you would hope. I think he comes back in May and he just, I think he murders everybody. March, maybe? Yeah. I guess I don't even know how much training he's had.
Exactly. And honestly, at this point, no matter when he comes back, whether it's March or May, I think he's done in November. I think he retires. Unless they convince him to stay because they need Yokozuna, I don't. But like, dude, the knees. Come on.
Yeah, I think it'll depend if they can get somebody solidly up to Ozeki in that time, then yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, for sure. That then they don't put pressure on him to stay. And Takakeisho could still do it. If Takakeisho goes 12-3 and wins this, technically the requirement for Yokozuna, there's not a requirement, like it's not written down in law or anything, but technically what they like to do is have you win back-to-back Yusho, preferably the two most recent Yusho, and to have had, I believe it's 36 wins over 3 tournaments, 36 or 37. That's what they want. Now, we said that if Takakeisho had gone 14-0 here, I think he would have had 36 or 37 wins over 3, and he would have had a runner-up playoff loss and a Yusho. So they would have considered that playoff loss equivalent to winning the Yusho, and they would have still promoted him. That would have been like either the same or a slightly better record than what Kakuryu and Kisei no Sato had gotten when they got promoted to Yokozuna, so it would have been perfectly reasonable. But at 12-3, there's absolutely no chance. He needs to now go win the next Yusho as well, which if Teru sits out or if Teru comes back and is hurt, maybe he can do it. But yeah, like as far as another Yokozuna, I don't know. And as far as, I mean, who do you think is the best, like, candidate for what I will call a next generation Ozeki? Like we talked about Tamawashi, we talked about Takayasu, but like, and if Kotonowaka and Nishikifuji disappointed, like who else even around there do you think is in the running?
Oh, it's hard to know. I mean, it's like I said, some of these people, they fall apart. Like you'd be like, oh, Daisho's pretty consistent. Wakataka, Kage, and Hoshoryu, they're good, but they really need to turn it up.
Mm-hmm. Kiribayama's more consistent than them now. Granted, it's consistently 9 wins, which is the problem, but like, can he do it? I
don't know if there's anybody even by end of year that's ready.
I know. And like, and the next generation of Juryo, like I think Juryo is really exciting right now. You've got Gonoyama, you've got Roga, you've got Atami Fuji, you've got Hokuseiho, you've got Kinbozan, and it looks like maybe both Hokuseiho and Kinbozan make it up into Makuuchi right now. But my thing is, why is it, if these guys are the next big thing, why is it taking them so long to even get out of Juryo into what's obviously a weak, chaotic Makuuchi? You know, like, I just want people online to, like, temper their expectations. Yeah, Kinbozan looks great. He did lose to Asanoyama, and he's got 2 losses in this Basho, but he's got the size, he's got the physicality. It's going to be super exciting to see him there, but I just want us all to slow down and ask ourselves, why is it not that he only turned pro in sumo like a year ago or whatever, but I'm just like, man, the dude's 24 and he's, been grinding in Juryo for several tournaments now. Let's not pretend that he's going to immediately run through and become a Yokozuna next year.
No, I think it's kind of the same thing where I got so excited with Nishikifuji because he just obliterated everybody up until his tournament. Yeah. Maybe it'd be a fluke thing, but then you bring up Atama Fuji and things did not go his way.
Exactly. Atama Fuji is one of these young, exciting guys in Juryo that I think the JSA were even trying to push up, like at 19 and then turning 20. They're like, yeah, okay, let's get these young guys up. This is the next generation. And then, boom, smacked them down.
He did barely better than Chiyomaru does. Which I love seeing Chiyomaru, but I'm like, how has he not been like retired? The dude is towards the top of Juryo, I guess, but definitely he's not qualified to fight Makuuchi anymore.
I'm almost to the point with Chiyomaru where it hurts too much. I'm like, it hurts too much to see my baby struggle.
Yeah, because every time you see him, you're like, oh, no, you're going to get obliterated again. Because it happens every time.
Oh, it just hurts me every time. So, I don't know. I mean, I think we're both on the same page. It's coming into the final weekend. Super exciting. This is yet another exciting tournament. I hope we don't sound too negative because we're not. We love this sport, and this is a super exciting era where anyone can win. If Onosho wins, we're super stoked about that. If Kotoshoho wins, what a great redemption story. If Takakeisho wins, hey, the Yokozuna chance is still alive. These are super exciting things. They're going to be super exciting matches. It's just, we're greedy. We just want so much more.
You just want the little bit of icing on the top.
Exactly. And I think, though, my pick is still, I'm keeping it the same as our pre-tournament pick. Like, it's Takakeisho, right?
Oh, absolutely. And then we'll go 2 tournaments in a row predicting the winner. Geniuses.
Ignore everything we said about the middle, but geniuses.
We got a couple things wrong, but for the most part, we're sitting pretty solid.
Yeah. We can, the big softball questions, those we can answer for you. Cool, but yeah, thanks for listening, everybody. Let us know in the comments what you think about who, because like legitimately, I'm super curious what we're missing, and what do you think are the resumes and the steps for some younger guys who can make a legitimate Ozeki run to sort of stabilize the division, or who do you think is the next Yokozuna? Like, let us know. I'm super curious to get more opinions in here. But other than that, thanks for listening, everybody, and let's see how this one shakes out.